Who wants a free ride?
All right.
Here we go.
Welcome to the 2012 Ford Focus.
The open road.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're a beautiful young lady.
Thank you. Oh.
Yeah. Are you guys an item?
I'm with this guy.
Yeah,
Back in 1998, as a follow-up to its best-selling economy car, the Escort, Ford introduced the Focus as their new compact car for the next millennium.
So, I mean, where do you see this going? Do you think this is like a long-term thing, or is this just for fun?
It's pretty new,
You don't have to
but
answer
it's
that. You
going
don't
well.
have to answer that.
Although Ford intended to make the Focus a more world car than its predecessor, it soon separated into different versions for North America versus worldwide, only to finally be reunited as a true world car in 2011.
Your relationship between the two of you?
Yeah.
Okay. you
Leave
know
that.
that's-
Just leave that part alone.
Okay.
Can you do
fellas.
that?
All right.
So it's just I should just assume it's understood
Okay. Well,
that we're having a
Well, you're
relationship.
doing a lot of assuming. A
this
lot of
car
assuming.
He's
can
just too
parallel
much.
park
It's just-
itself.
Yeah, why don't you
Learning.
park your mouth?
Despite receiving praise from hot hatch enthusiasts for its SVT and later its RS models, the Focus was also plagued by reliability issues, and its worst fault of all, it wasn't a profitable SUV, leading to its end in North America in 2018, and will soon end worldwide as well.
Whatever.
I wish I had a little glove. I would slap your face with it, and we would
right.
duel on the field of
All
honor.
right. Let's not
I
encourage
have to say,
that.
I've never had two guys fight over me. It's kind of
This is the story of the Ford Focus. This is my old car.
Would you shut up?
You are goading.
What?
You are making a bad situation worse.
You're a.
All right.
Ooh,
Hey.
language.
say that.
Language.
Deeply.
We are in a Ford Focus.
He said
We're gonna
activate.
go get something to eat.
That's
I
probably
need
a
something
good
to
idea.
eat. Maybe, maybe I'm just
Thank you for
testing.
the ride.
All right.
Oh, hey, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Ford
Lovely.
Focus 2012.
Lovely to ride with some of you.
I hope you have a
Call me.
Back in the 80s, an onslaught of Japanese imports were quite successful at moving the car-buying public away from the land yachts that were synonymous with America in the 70s.
No wonder this circuit failed. It says made in Japan.
What do you mean, Doc? All the best stuff is made in Japan.
Unbelievable.
But Ford also created a small car platform that did an admirable job at competing with those imports by introducing the Escort in 1981. The original plan was to use the same car that Ford of Europe also sold overseas, but their research into the American market led to changes that essentially made the American Escort far different than its European counterpart, despite their American advertising that still pushed the Escort as a world car. By the mid-90s, the Escort was still selling well, but Ford again wanted to try to consolidate their small car market by introducing a new small car from Europe to the American market.
Wow, the surprising Ford Escort. Get one with everything, but get it to go.
Ford's new small car was called the Focus and began production in Europe in 1998. Unlike most any car line today, the Focus was offered as a 3 or 5-door hatchback, a 4-door sedan, and a 5-door wagon. Although since the car first launched in Europe, the correct terms for the last two should be saloon and estate. The styling was clearly an attempt to move away from the overly rounded and bubble-like shapes that Ford had initially done well in the late 80s, but clearly pushed too far in the mid-90s.
Truman, I think I'm gonna throw up. Me too.
The Focus was marketed by Ford as a new edge design, although I personally think has stood the test of time fairly well, had mixed reviews at the time, something Ford was hoping to avoid after the debacle that was the third-gen Ford Taurus. Ford introduced the Focus into the North American market in late 1999 as a 2000 model, and assembly was in Detroit, Michigan, whereas overseas assembly took place in Germany, as well as in various plants worldwide. However, in North America, sales of the Escort were still decent enough that Ford opted to continue selling the Escort alongside the Focus until 2003, although the remainder of the Escort run was most popular for rental fleets. The new Focus soon proved to be far more popular, so much so that it earned the North American Car of the Year award in 2000, and made it into the top 10 for American sales within its first model year. Worldwide, the Focus would become the top-selling car between 1999 and 2004, and helped turn around Ford of Europe, which had been losing market share with the aging Ford Escort. Ford called the 3-door hatchback the ZX3, and by 2002 would offer a 5-door hatchback called the ZX5. And although wagon models were starting to lose favor compared to SUVs, Ford managed to continue offering a 5-door wagon for the Focus in North America. But although the primary purpose of the Focus was to be a compliance car, meaning that its reason for existing was to lower Ford's fuel economy average to offset their popular trucks and SUVs, Ford did try to inject some fun for those wanting a car that wasn't just a cheap way to get from A to B. The result was the Focus SVT, introduced for the 2002 model year in the US. Although it wasn't quite the Mark I Focus RS that was offered in Europe, the American Focus SVT, which could only be had as a 3-door hatchback, had Recaro front bucket seats as standard, and used Ford's 170 horsepower double overhead cam Z-Tech 4-cylinder, with performance upgrades to the pistons, cams, brakes, exhaust, and a Getrag 6-speed manual, resulting in a 0 to 60 time of 7.5 seconds. Yes, those numbers don't sound all that impressive today, but it was impressive 20 years ago, and helped more younger buyers achieve decent performance for not a lot of money. But the SVT also lacked a turbocharger that allowed the European RS, which was special enough to get its own assembly line in Germany, to achieve 212 horsepower.
Go around this hairpin bend at 150 miles an hour. Sir, yes, sir!
In 2003, the SVT line was expanded to the 5-door ZX5, and also offered what was known as EAP, or the European Appearance Package, which offered black perforated leather for the Recaro seats, unique wheels, and exclusive exterior colors that were appropriately named for the SVT, Screaming Yellow and Competition Orange. However, by 2004, with the American Escort discontinued after its impressive 22-year run, Ford yet again went against their own World Car plan and introduced a Mark II version of the Focus worldwide. But production of the North American Focus remained on its existing platform and production in Detroit. Although some in the US may have considered the 2005 Focus to be a second generation, as it did receive a facelift outside and inside, the Detroit-built 2005 Focus technically was the same model underneath, as it had been the previous 4 years. 2004 would also be the last year of the SVT model, and with only around 14,000 sold over those 3 years, remaining SVTs in good condition have gained value, especially since many of them were driven hard when new. And the SVT managed to sell far better than the European RS, which in its first iteration only lasted about 13 months with 4,500 sold. Nearly half of those were sold in the UK.
Well, it's about time, Sleeping Beauty. Thought you pretty much forgot about me out here. I'm a car that craves pavement. If I don't get some soon, ooh, I go Lulu.
In 2005, Ford's new performance trim was renamed the ST, but the ST wasn't a standalone model. Instead, it was a new trim tacked on to the ZX4, the new name for the Focus 4-door sedan, as Ford changed its Focus models to all be ZX, followed by a number.
I need to run too.
However, with a drop in nearly 20 horsepower, and the loss of some performance-specific upgrades, the ST wasn't really a direct replacement, but made business sense, considering sales of the SVT had dropped to their lowest numbers by 2004, with only just over 3,000 sold, compared to over 6,000 the year before. There was also a Focus ST in Europe, based on the Mark II, but this one had a Volvo 2.5-liter Turbo 4 that made 225 horsepower, and the same engine would later be used in a limited run of the Mark II RS in 2009.
It is also extremely fast.
In 2007, for the 2008 model year, another facelift was done for the North American Focus, which was still on a platform that differed from the Mark II Focus that began overseas in 2004. Lower sales for the hatchback and wagon models resulted in their cancellation for the North American model, whereas the hatchback and wagon continued with the Mark II. But thanks to the change in leadership in Ford, with CEO Alan Mulally starting in 2006, the two different versions of the Focus were finally going to merge back into one, as part of Mullally's One Ford plan to sell the same models worldwide. Production of the North American Focus ended in late 2010 to rework the Detroit assembly plan for what would now be the Mark III model. Although the Mark III model started to roll off the assembly line in spring of 2011 as 2012 models, the previous generation was still for sale, resulting in some dealers selling the old model at up to 50% discounts. Considering the Focus continued to focus, pun intended, on younger buyers, Ford took the new model as an opportunity to fully exploit the best place to sell it, social media.
Oh,
You can go ahead and touch it.
It is not hot. It is not
Right.
hot. Is it broken?
No, it's not broken. If you're in a cold weather area, it'll melt any snow or that might pile up there. So.
Okay. What
You
about
did
a
it
hot
different.
weather area?
Although social media today is used by just about everybody, including old guys like me, back in 2011, it was more in its infancy, with YouTube and Facebook still being relative newcomers, but primarily used by those in the Focus target audience.
Access right here.
Okay.
And all you have to do is have this key somewhere on you in your pocket.
Oh, I'm sorry. I accidentally brushed your hand.
Using social media allowed Ford to try some offbeat advertising that wouldn't be found on network
All you need to
TV.
do is have this key somewhere on your person.
Sure.
And then the door will actually automatically unlock. I don't actually know where you would carry it on you.
What they came up with was Doug, their new obnoxious spokesman, or should I say spokes puppet. He wasn't exactly in the same league as, say, Jim Henson's Muppets, but that obviously was the whole point.
Okay, great.
I'd accept more over dinner.
Let's not go there right now, all right?
Gotcha.
Okay.
If you don't remember seeing Doug before, then you probably weren't at the proper age 12 years ago when Doug and his human friend John were first introduced to the internet. Doug and John made over 50 videos. Some of the later ones didn't even feature the car. When it came to actual screen time, they probably weren't on screen as much as they would have been in traditional TV commercials, as views dropped considerably after that first one was released. US sales of the 2012 model, at nearly 247,000, was a 70,000 unit jump from 2011. In fact, the Focus was the highest selling model worldwide for 2012, although sales decreased each year in the US after that.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, let's go inside. I like it.
Don't smell my
What's the
boss's
matter?
fingers. Don't smell my
What,
boss's fingers. Who
what's
does that?
the problem?
Who does that?
You don't know how to have fun.
I know how to have fun. Fun does not involve me losing my job because you smelled my boss's fingers.
If you lose your job, the more fun you can have. Oh!
There's more where that came from.
This decrease wasn't entirely Doug's fault. More likely it was because the Focus wasn't an SUV.
That was awesome. What's going on?
What's up with the fireworks?
Oh, it's the new Explorer. We need a big announcement.
No.
Which continued to grow each year and ate away at the sales of the Focus. But some of the drop in sales may have also been to reported problems with Ford's automatic transmission that they called Power Shift, whose owners complained of transmission shuddering, enough that there were even lemon law claims made against it. Despite this, the NHTSA never forced a recall, and as such, Ford has not yet issued one. The Ford Fiesta, their subcompact, which has also since been discontinued, had the same issue. To help stem the loss of sales from SUVs, Ford continued to offer the ST trim, now with an EcoBoost 4-cylinder that made 252 horsepower.
You can't touch this. You can't touch this.
But this improved ST model was essentially a placeholder for the eventual arrival of the new Focus RS, which arrived in Europe in 2015 and the US and Canada in 2016. Packaged with the same 2.3-liter turbo EcoBoost as the Mustang, the all-wheel drive Focus RS made 350 horsepower and offered features never imagined on the original Focus, such as drift mode and launch control.
Yeah, it brings out the yobbo in me.
Despite the impressive performance figures for the RS, overall sales of the Focus had been dropping each year in the US, with sales for 2018 dropping to less than half the number from 2012. It was that same year, 2018, that Ford announced its decision to discontinue most of its lineup that wasn't trucks or SUVs, leaving the only traditional cars in their lineup as the Mustang and Fusion. This was a controversial move, which disappointed a lot of potential buyers. Although sales of over 113,000 units may sound like a decent number, the continued decrease year after year put the Focus on the chopping block for the US and Canadian buyers. This year was also chosen because the 4th generation Focus was starting in Europe that same year. Although small cars have always sold better in Europe than the US, even the Focus has been unable to continue any upward trend there. The 2018 Focus from the Mark III model was also the last one available for the RS, as emission standards in Europe, not to mention the high development cost for such a low volume car, prevented a Mark IV RS. The remainder of the Focus lineup wasn't safe either, since the Focus was still an internal combustion car, and Europe continues to move towards electrification. Production hasn't shut down yet as of the creation of this video, but it is expected to finally end by 2025 in Europe. It may continue in China, but even that remains unlikely, as sales have dropped over there for the past few years as well. Small cars like the Focus may never return here, even as an EV, as Ford hasn't revealed any plans to move away from trucks and SUVs for the foreseeable future. Which is a shame, since a more affordable sports car than the Mustang would likely make a good option here in the States. If not, we can only reminisce about little cars from days gone by. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, click the like button and subscribe to my channel.
What are you talking about? People love the car. People, for whatever reason, seem to think we have some chemistry.
Well, I think what people thought was, why is that one guy trying to overshadow that other guy?
How am I going to overshadow you? You're orange.
If you once owned a car from the 80s to mid-2000s that you rarely see today and would like it featured in a future episode, leave a reply in the comments or contact me at the email shown here. See you next time.
Listen to text!
Your mom likes hobbits.
Ah!